Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome back to another Shenandoah University Esports broadcast. My name is Kevin Clayton, and today I'm joined by Gavin, aka Sincere. Gavin, how you doing tonight?
I am doing fantastic. I'm ready to cast some Tekken, man.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting matchup here tonight. We have MossMan back at it once again for some Tekken 8 action in the CFGC conference matchups. It's going to be beautiful stuff. For those of you who may be new here, the CFGC is a tournament-styled setting where you play multiple matches each week, 3 matches against a variety of different players. You get your MR-based system, and you kind of have to build your way up, going up against the best of them. So, big point here tonight, we are going to be seeing 5 matches against each opponent.
Yep.
No matter what the score is. Someone may go up 3-0. Doesn't matter. We're watching the rest because it'll matter for the MR rankings. And trust me, when it's this level of competition in this sort of fast-paced game, that's a lot of gameplay, no matter what game you're talking about.
Yeah, especially with this game where it's so chaotic and fast-paced. We're going to go through a lot of games at a lot of really, really rapid points. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, great stuff though. And on top of that, if we want to take a quick look here at the schedule going forward, if you want to see some more fighting game action, maybe not in the traditional sense, but still, we will have some Super Smash Bros. Action tomorrow. Both the varsity and the academy roster will be playing at 7 o'clock, as well as Rocket League playing once again, trying to get a revenge run after Monday, and is going to be having even more competition. It should be exciting stuff, as well as Academy Overwatch on Friday, who also is going to be looking for that revenge run. Had a little bit of a bounce back on Tuesday. We did see that they went down 1-3 to Leslie University, but from what we saw originally, they went down 0-2, managed to get a little bit of momentum, but it just wasn't enough at the end. So it should be exciting stuff when all of that happens. Again, if you're new here, drop a follow. It'll be a great time.
Yeah, and speaking on that schedule, I'm really curious to see how Overwatch and Rocket League do, because Rocket League kind of looked like they struggled a little bit, but then they started to get their feet back under them, like towards the third game. And then Overwatch, again, had that sign of life. The last game went into overtime, so it was really close as well. And then Smash started off really strong, and then the second game looked a little bit rocky. So tomorrow, and especially Friday, looking at how these teams, continue to grow.
Yeah, it'll be crazy stuff. And while we did see a little bit of the players yesterday trying to get back into that momentum, that swing of things, we have a chance now to talk with one of our players. So we're going to send it over to Igloo to talk with MossMan about the competition tonight. Take it away, guys.
Thank you guys so much for holding it down in the back for us. I'm here with the man himself, MossMan, here to play some Tekken for us tonight. I cannot be more excited. We've not seen Tekken yet here on the broadcast this year. Saw you last semester on the Nina. Is there going to be any changes with some of the meta shifts we've seen in Tekken over break, or is it going to be more of the same from you tonight, MossMan?
Probably more of the same. Nina got nerfed a little bit here and there. Nina's still really good. As for everyone else, as long as Jin gets nerfed, pretty much everything else I feel is really good. It's pretty similar than to what we saw last semester. Obviously, Clive is now in, and I've picked up Clive a little bit. I really like Clive. He's really annoying to play against, but he's really fun to play as. Perfect for me. So, in terms of anything changing, it'll probably just be I play Clive a little bit more, so I have a second character, because if I ever have to face a Lily's Nina again, I'd rather just quit playing video games altogether.
Well, there you go. A lot of confidence coming out for the MossMan, even feeling confident in some of those matchups, that you have that other character that you're able to go in that sort of scenario, and that's great to hear from you. What else are you feeling going into the matches tonight? We got those first initial matches. I'm sure you've been playing a lot as you warm up for these, but what do these matches mean for you here today going forward in the season?
Just momentum. It's a good start. If there's a big difference between starting 0-3 and starting 3-0. I ended last season kind of just ended. There wasn't really any I didn't really feel any sort of sense of accomplishment. So I think that a big start to the season for me would just bode really well. And
Yeah, I mean, that start is oh so important. And, when you have those losses, you just got to get back on your feet and, go out there and swing. And I hope to see you swing tonight, MossMan. I'm sure you'll do great. Do you have any final words for the audience before you start tonight?
Just shout out Grandma.
Shout out Grandma, indeed. Back to you guys in the booth.
Yeah, great shout out to Grandma, of course. Great interview as well. I'm very happy to hear that MossMan is going into this season with the hopes of starting out strong because, this is the sort of game where truly momentum is such a crazy factor.
Yeah, absolutely. The first hit, it matters so much in this game if you're looking at it literally, but also it's a long season. You have a lot of games to play, so starting off strong, feeling confident in yourself is a huge, huge boost to your momentum.
Absolutely. Now, if we can take a quick look at Moss's last semester record, I want to point out just a couple of things here. We do see MossMan at a 38-95, which sounds a little like drastic and stuff, but it also is worth noting MossMan last semester was relatively new to the game and was taking matches off of some very high level players. So keep an eye out for that tonight. It does sound like we may see some high level competition, and you don't want to sleep on the MossMan because it is crazy what he can get away with on his Nina, and I don't even want to start talking about that Final Fantasy character.
Yeah, Clive, I haven't seen much Tekken admittedly, but Clive looks like a lot of fun, looks very, very chaotic to play. But Nina kind of more of the slow combo style. She has a lot of the juggles and things like that, really about getting them in the air. So I'm curious to see what MossMan aims to play today.
Yeah, that's been a really big factor of MossMan's matches every single time he can get some sort of stage where there's usually not any sort of like wall or something like that. There are some stages you can play where it's either relatively open and you have walls on the edges, or you have the beach stage, which doesn't have walls at all. You are able to just sort of roll around. You're still caught in these awkward spots, but you can keep momentum sort of back in your favor. And Moss does great in that sort of middle ground area. It's when the walls happen that you see a lot of people who specialize in that aspect. They love to get really aggressive on getting your opponent, carrying them straight to the wall, and then unleashing as much damage as possible right then and there. Nina doesn't do that as much. She's got a lot of great tools, but she prefers to use them just sort of as a, I know what you're going to do, let me show you this tool that I've got. That is the answer to this rock, paper, scissors.
Right, and it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that because Clive is the complete opposite. He aims to get you in that corner. He wants to combo off of the wall. And Nina does the complete opposite. She wants to play this long range. She wants to dash towards you, kind of get you in the air and combo off of that. And, when you're against the corner, they don't go very far, and that kind of goes against Nina. So we have two very differing playstyles for MossMan to kind of pick and choose what he wants to do depending on the matchup. But there's a lot of mental game there. He has to get himself in the mindset of, okay, I'm putting them up against the wall, or we're going to play in the open space. We're going to play fast, and we're going to play gritty. Yeah,
that's something that is so incredibly valuable. If you can play a majority of characters in whatever game you're playing, whether it's Smash, whether it's games like League, where you have these sorts of different options available to you, you can really make a drastic difference in what your opponent needs to be ready for.
Right, and speaking of opponents, like game one, you go against Nina, you're like, all right, I'm going to play up. I'm going to play don't let her dash towards me. Don't let her get all this space. And then you play against a Clive the next set. Obviously, in Tekken, you play 3 games and you get kicked out of the lobby, so you do have the chance to change characters. Things like that changes a lot of the mentality going behind the game. You have to also mentally readjust yourself as well as the opponent.
Yeah, and when you're talking about a different play style on that sort of aspect, yes, Nina is going to have those dash-ins. It's going to find opportunities to use that armor, the power crush to go forward and get solid damage, use the heat dash, get crazy damage. But also, Clive will be playing at about the same distance. The only difference is going to be when it comes to how that opponent does need to deal with that. That change in mindset will decide whether or not I'm going to be able to get a whiff punish on this giant sword.
Yeah.
Or if I'm going to whiff on Moss's early swing and then it's going to be Moss's turn again to just continue his momentum, keep building that damage, and just keep your opponent in that block stun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like you mentioned, Clive has this huge sword that kind of comes out at different angles, at different speeds, and then with the other one, you know, you have like really fast jabs, you have really fast, aggressive playstyle, not a lot of frames to like punish, so kind of curious.
Yeah, the big thing about Tekken, for those of you who may be new to the franchise or are here enjoying the Shenandoah esports side of things, Tekken is the kind of game where you don't see that sort of traditional zoner, is what I like to say, of like truly sit back, throw out as many projectiles as I can, and just overwhelm you with whatever's on screen. Both players are there to smack each other silly, and that is such a crazy aspect, but also it leads to all of these characters having so many tools available, both on a fundamental level, from like your dashes in the foreground and background, to just movesets. I'm pretty sure like characters like King have 200 plus moves, and Nina probably has somewhere in like 120. You don't see all of those, but you build that game plan around a couple of moves, and they all tend to work on that fundamental level. Then you can start adjusting your game plan. Oh, my opponent likes to go for this power crush. Well, then maybe I can get in close enough and grab them early, or maybe I can dash in the foreground and sort of get damage going there.
Yeah, dashing foreground, background, it's a very different style for fighting games in general. Most of these games are played on like a 2D platform or 2D like angle, and in this game you can go in the foreground, you can go in the background, like a lot of different ways to dodge. And like I was talking to Kevin before, like because Street Fighter's more so what I'm familiar with, and in Street Fighter they jump a lot. And in Tekken, you don't jump at all. You kind of skirt around, you skirt on the outsides, you back up a lot, but no jumping, which is very interesting.
Yeah, it's every now and then, whenever you see someone jump in Tekken, you can't help but laugh a little bit, because it's usually a misinput. You barely leave the ground. You might dodge a low, but if you're going to dodge a low, you would rather just try to block low. Mm-hmm. But that brings a whole other aspect to these games. You got that high, mid, low aspect of getting your hits in, and if you're going to have to deal with the low, 9 times out of 10, low moves are just slow. They have a lot of end lag, especially on block. So you want to be careful how often you're throwing those moves out, as well as they don't always find crazy combos. If you're going to find a combo, you want it to be through hitting your mid, and you want your opponent to get hit by that, whether they're crouching or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's super interesting that in Tekken there's so many different avenues to get in and to start a combo. You have the highs, you have the mids, you have the lows, and every single way has an answer to it. You know, if they send a high, you can duck below that. If they send a mid, you can block it, or you can go in the foreground, background. Same with the lows. You can jump above it if you're feeling kind of spicy with it, or you can just block low. This game is really like a tug of war where it's the opponents really just blocking each other nonstop until one person makes a mistake. And then once that mistake happens, bam, instantly the combo comes out.
Yeah, and I would say generally in most of those scenarios, you see maybe like 3 to 4 of those crazy strings. If someone makes a mistake and if they have enough end lag on it to start a combo, combos in this game look like they hit hard, do hit hard, and just delete your health bar. And so you can only afford so many mistakes. Yes, these series do go upwards of anywhere between 3 to 5 matches in a round, but like, or rounds in a match, excuse me. But like, that's crazy to think about just how quickly you can melt in this sort of game.
Yeah, and looking at just, you know, our free cam here, our roaming camera, we have Moss practicing on the Nina, so we have to assume that the Nina's coming out first, which is a little depressing because I think Clive looked like a lot of fun. I mean, he's a new character. Like, we haven't seen him before. Moss played Nina the entire time on stream last semester. So really looking forward to that. But again, like Nina, as you can see, a bunch of juggling implementation, a lot of combo-based moves in the open.
Yeah, a big factor of what MossMan goes for when playing on this Nina, will see a lot of the power crush where you're able to armor through the highs and the middle attacks and get that immediate momentum. MossMan likes using that purely to just stuff out opponents. He's brutal like that, and it catches a lot of people off guard just because you're telling me I need to go for these lows. We already said you got laggy options. They're there to do like little bits of chip damage or whatever. You're telling me my option to deal with this super hard hitting move that starts combos and gets crazy potential starters for MossMan is answered through a move that I really don't want to use.
Yeah, I didn't study that on the textbook. You have all these moves to study. I didn't look at any of the lows, because they're not as flashy. Like, the mids are really fun. The jabs and the highs are really, like, fast, and they start these combos. But the mids are, like, these big, explosive, camera-altering moves. And obviously, you don't want to play around with the lows. Like, those are no fun.
Yeah.
But again, with Moss, he opens with this huge dash attack very often using his heat. He loves to do that just to kind of put himself in the advantage, and he has the first move.
Yeah, and it gets you so much. Not only with that, but MossMan is it tends to be a very grab-heavy character, no matter who he's playing. And it's just because it's a very good knowledge check. If you don't know how to break out of a grab, it could spell disaster for you, because not only are you losing a solid chunk of health, but then MossMan does get a setup. You're stuck usually on the ground, and the answer needs to come out from the first moment that grab sort of connects. Whichever hand comes out first, you're dealing with either 1 or 2 on your controller, and that'll decide that sort of momentum side of things, whether or not the opponent gets to break out of the grab, maybe get a little bit of that reset in the neutral state, or are we just going to let MossMan keep having his turn?
Yeah, with the grabs, I mean, you can chain them back to back. You can do a bunch of creative things with it. And yeah, like you said, there is one input to counter it. But like, if they're not comfortable countering all these grabs in succession, like, Moss is very much known to send out 3, maybe 4 in a row. The first one doesn't work, maybe the 3rd, 5th, 6th might connect. And at that point, then he can kind of get rolling with it.
Yeah, the nice thing about this game is that there is that sort of reaction aspect to it. Once you are able to get that grab, you're definitely able to sort of react on, okay, this is the move that I saw. I'm going to try to hit the 1 or the 2 as quickly as I can, see if that's the answer. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? With all of that being said, there's so many different aspects to this game, and we are going to take a very quick break because it sounds like it's going to take just a little bit longer for MossMan to get into competition. So do not go anywhere. We will be back with those matches in just a little bit.
Shenandoah University is a big little university rising.
With 22 Division III sports teams, over 200 areas of study,
over 300 annual performances, an elite academic esports program,
nationally ranked health professions programs, one of the biggest university presences on Broadway,
immersive AR and VR learning programs,
cybersecurity and computer science programs, and innovative undergrad and graduate programs.
all at a place that cares for you.
Shenandoah University is the big little university rising. Find out more at su.edu/rising.
We have the Esports Arena right here on campus in Winchester, Virginia, and this facility acts as the hub for all esports activity at Shenandoah University. Students are able to use this space not just for competition and practices, but also as a living learning community and a sandbox for them to come and explore and practice and try out things related to and through esports in the gaming industry, so that they're getting that hands-on learning and the skills necessary to help them find a career by the time they graduate. We also have the professional level broadcast production booth, where we do all of our broadcasting and production, from casting of our games that we play right here on campus to working with outside entities to record footage for them as well. In addition to the space that we have here in the Esports Arena is the Esports War Room. Our students get to use that space for studying, but also outside projects. So our students get to use this space for professional development and the academic side of our esports program, which is such a critical component to go with that competitive element that we have. So we combine all of our facilities at Shenandoah University with competition, community, and career preparation. We have over 250 days of programming, and there's something for everybody, and we want you to be part of it.
And we are back. We wanted to take just a quick break, check up on everything, make sure everything was going smoothly. By the sounds of things, it looks like MossMan is sitting out for this first round of the pool. There, instead of being a 4-person pool, it sounds like one person is trying to play later tonight. So MossMan is opting to sit back, let the opponents play their first match, and we will see the rest of it play out in just a little bit. But for now, that does mean that we get to talk just a little bit more about what all MossMan could be going up against. And by the sounds of things, it sounds like we are going to be seeing a very high-level player playing Reina, one of the Mishimas, playing very similar to Kazuya, which is something that Shenandoah University has a little bit of experience with, but not in Tekken. It's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, we have Willie, who's kind of our shining light in Smash. You know, he plays the Kazuya in that. And from what I've gathered, it plays very similarly. I mean, if you watch any of our Smash games, Willie does this thing where it's like crouch sliding, and it looks very goofy, but if you're a Smash player, that is very intimidating, because from what I've heard from talking to him about Smash, that is a very, very precise input to be put in. And Kazuya in Tekken plays kind of the same way. He can do a bunch of these unique things. He can do the Thunder Fist into a bunch of different combos. So if you're a high-level player on a style of fighter like Kazuya, like, that's a very, very scary opponent to go against.
Yeah, because let's break this down at an even deeper level. Those crouch dashes in Smash Bros, they tried to implement the sort of invincibility aspect to it. The reason why, while it doesn't have the invincibility in Tekken, it's because you can't hit Kazuya high while he's doing that crouch dash. My opponent is running at me, and 1/3 of my moveset is gone, out the window.
Right.
So there's this whole sort of meta developed around Kazuya, or just frankly, any sort of Mishima's move set where they are sort of dashing forward, able to dodge these lows, or dodge these highs, excuse me. But also, in Tekken, when you're using like backdash, forward dash, whatever, you are still able to block.
Yep.
In other games, you would think, oh, I'm dashing, I'm using movement. Movement is so incredibly important. I shouldn't be able to block if I'm trying to move.
But
in this
Tekken
game
is different.
yeah, it's crazy stuff.
I mean, yeah. So like, again, with these dash movements, you know, you might see this Kazuya, this Mishima, excuse me, kind of lead out with that to maybe counteract Masha's dash attack to start the fight. And there's a lot of options to go out of that. You could start with like the Electric Wind God Fist or the equivalent of it, because all the Mishimas have it.
Yeah.
Or you could start with this, you know, kind of crouch dash forward and, you know, really intimidate Mas. So I'm curious what happens.
Yeah, especially the Reina in particular is this sort of powerful, like, there's something about this character that every single time I feel like we see them in any sort of competition, they're usually very fast-paced, they love to play in your face, and they like to hit buttons. Now, thankfully, I do think Moss has sort of adapted to that, has learned his options for dealing with people who just like to hit jab over and over until they decide that they're bored and go for something else. But in this sort of matchup, where you're playing against someone who is potentially, I believe, top 5 in CFGC last semester, this is you are dealing with someone who plays aggressive and like very smart with this sort of stuff. And aggressive and smart, scary stuff.
Yeah, and something that's nice, as we just saw, is that Moss is now able to kind of study that gameplay. Obviously, he played against him last semester. They play against everyone in CFGC. So you have some experience to go into it, but now you get to watch that first fight, see, okay, what is going on? Like, what is going through this player's head? What is going through both their players' heads? You know, maybe going second, although you kind of ice yourself because you're warmed up, you're ready to go, you're amped, and then you're like, oh, I got to sit out. But you also get to study. You know, this game, there's a lot of it where it is player dependent, like player preference. You know, players can do a lot of different combos. Like you said, there's like 200 moves on every single character. No one's using all those moves, so it's whatever preference they have. And if you can learn that preference, you can block against it. You have counters to it. Every single champ kind of, or every single character kind of, you know, meshes together. It's like there's no true counter to anyone. It's just how you play the characters.
Yeah, and it also gives you a little bit of information on the side of which moves feel like they should be potentially plus on block, where you have the advantage, you can keep going on the offensive because you still are taking your turn on that offense, or maybe this move looks like it should have the advantage, but suddenly it's -20 on block, which just means that MossMan can choose any move in those 200 moves and say, let's go with this one. Long combo across the stage, dealing tons of damage. I mean, it all could be... There's so many different intricacies about that, and information is key. No one is going to learn everything that there is about this game, but the more you know, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, I mean, this game, as I like to say, is like you have to go to school to play this game. There's a lot of frame data, there's a lot of input lag, there's a lot of different moves. Everything in this game can be studied, and the good players and the bad players and the pros, they all have varying levels of knowledge to their specific characters and the other characters. So it's about finding that gap where it's like, okay, this person, they don't know like how I answer with this or my frame data on this move, and you can really start to punish that if you can notice it, be aware of it.
You want to talk about knowledge checks? I feel like we've seen that at higher levels of Tekken, where we had seen sort of the meta develop around characters like Reina and the I was about to call him Balrog, that's the Street Fighter character. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Dragunov, that's it. Like Dragunov was a character who was just crazy good, is still very good, and people are so aware of it, but because they're so aware of it, you started to see people find answers or ways to sort of mitigate whatever that character's game plan was. So when big tournaments roll around, like say Evo or something like that, suddenly, rather than seeing Dragunov in the finals, you saw Kuma. Like you see the bear character. And the last time I checked, you see the bear at the bottom of the tier list, which is like, I mean, truly, knowledge can carry you so far in these games.
Right, and I mean, we saw Nina in Evo as well in the grand finals. So you have that as well. And speaking on meta, if a character's meta, you know, obviously you're going to play against it more in ranked. And when you play against it, especially when you lose against it, you're going to gain knowledge. Every time you lose, you die to something. Every time something like comes out that you weren't expecting, you're going to put that in your, you know, your deep thoughts. You're like, I can't forget this because I got punished from it last time. So it's kind of the idea in like most games, like you want to play off meta. Like if it's not strictly based off numbers, if it's strictly off of frame data and stuff, maybe you want to play something more off meta, because then they don't know everything that's coming. They haven't played hours and hours against it in ranked, you know. You maybe see it once or twice.
Yeah, and people love to specialize in those sorts of things. I do think we're getting a little bit of information about the opponents that MossMan could be playing against. We were right about the Reina, so a Mishima nonetheless, a lot of similar moves that we'll be expecting out of that matchup. But the other person we're going to be seeing is someone named Fang. Fang, being this sort of martial artist style character, is very strong, tends to hit really hard, but also just has a lot of movement. He will do crazy flips and kicks and stuff like that.
Classic.
Yeah, just like true, if you're not intimidated by pure damage, you will be intimidated by just how much this character will be flying around on these hits.
Yeah, I mean, Tekken in general is just a very movement-based game. Every single move, like every backstep, every sidestep, everything goes very, very quickly. I mean, the timer for this round is only 60 seconds, but then you have a character like that you know, just doubles it or triples it. That can be very, very scary, especially if you don't exactly know every single move out of it. You're like, oh man, he's doing this flip. Like, can this be comboed into something? You know, there's a lot of intimidation there.
Yeah, you see the flip and then you're like, okay, I blocked it, or like I was crouching and it hit me. So is it like a mid attack? It must be a mid attack, right? And then suddenly you get hit by like some random power crush because you were confused by that, and it can really just snowball all at once, just one hit after another. It's very important in these sorts of games that you don't get flustered because of how much is going on. You can go into these games just purely focusing on your game plan. If you want, you can truly just specialize in, I know what I want, I'm going to be on the lookout for this sort of thing from the opponent so that I can look for my move. It's the players who do take the time to learn just a little bit more about what the opponent might do. Defense is a real factor of this game. I know it's an aggressive game, but you can get rewarded. It's just a matter almost of preference, really.
Right, yeah, preference is a huge thing. And I would imagine, like, if I were to, like, actively compete in this game, if you're playing, like, the super aggressive mindset that Moss typically has, if you're going against someone who's very defensive, you know, you have to mentally reset. You just have to go into every single round, every single game with a blank slate of, okay, I got screwed over by this, or like I got lucky with this. None of that matters when you get into round 2, 3, 4, 5. In this case, you know, everything changes, everything gets reset right at the end of that 60 seconds.
Yeah, and it's a I need to be careful saying turn-based. Turn-based is a very slow sort of game, but there is something you can take away from that, where if it is not your turn to be hitting back at your opponent, you really shouldn't be.
Don't take the controller.
You're right, exactly. Like, you gotta take the time to understand, okay, this, like, I shouldn't be swinging back here. Unless your opponent is going for something crazy. They know a move is plus, and they say, you're too scared. You are so intimidated by all this pressure that I'm putting on that I just dash forward and grab you. You weren't ready for that. You were expecting me to go for something else. Suddenly, that's how I start my game plan. Just keeping that level head, trying to focus on these little aspects of the intricacies of a neutral game. That is where you will really see these sort of games shine.
Yeah, and in this game specifically, there's a lot of the respect and disrespect. You know, if your opponent's being really disrespectful, you know, going for a bunch of these plus moves and saying, you know, I'm just a better opponent. Like, I know you won't do this. Like, you can really start to punish them. But in the same way, you have to respect your opponent. Even if, like, a plus move hit once, you cannot expect that to keep happening. You have to play very respectful. You have to play very calculated. And I don't want to say slowly, because this game, like, as we will see very shortly, is very, very fast-paced. But everything is set and forth. Like, everything is very calculated as we see Moss kind of, you know, warming up, getting ready. So clearly we're about to get into game.
Yeah, and that is a very important factor. If you're going to take anything out of this, make sure once you have that game plan sort of built for yourself, because there's so much going on in this game, because people will be limited in the moves that they have, habits will build. No matter what game you're playing, you will find little nuances. Someone likes to go for this plus move into a low. It'll happen a dozen times, so you can start seeing that. Oh, okay, they went for this move that's plus. Here comes the low. I can block it, or maybe it's slow enough that I hit them back. Habits are the biggest weakness in fighting games, and I hope we get to see a little bit of that today.
Right, yeah. I mean, we can talk about habits a lot with, like, you know, kind of the staples of Tekken. You know, we have this thing called heat. And, you know, sometimes opponents or players like to use their heat immediately. Be like, all right, we're going to go all in immediately. We're going to use all of our damage. We're going to go for these huge, big hits immediately. Or you can kind of look at your heat as a way to, you know, use it for a finisher. Like, wait till they're maybe halfway out, and then you can kind of finish them off with that. And it looks like we're getting the game here.
Yeah, here we go. We do have the Nina matchup versus the Reyna, and now we see the first couple of hits, but there's that power crush coming out from MossMan, getting that first initial hit, going for the heat dash to get a little bit more, but Reyna doing a good job of taking that momentum back. A very nice string into the wall.
Yeah, and again, like we said, combo base is all it is. This game is all about just getting that combo right into the wall, but Moss does a great job getting out of that grab and out of the corner now. Ariza's in the corner.
Yeah, Reyna immediately thrown into the wall, but getting hit with really good damage. And I do love that we are seeing a very aggressive playstyle from MossMan here. Because the Reyna has not broken out of grabs thus far, I do think that this could be Moss's ticket to keep this momentum going, but a very good sort of counter hit from Reyna means that MossMan is now on the back foot.
Yeah, and again, now we have the heat rage that MossMan might try to use here. It gets blocked, which is a good block by Reyna, but again, these grabs, like you said, she doesn't really have an answer to it yet, so you might as well keep going for it immediately.
Holy cow. Pardon me, it just hit me. You know, MossMan doing a really good job of sort of keeping up with this Reyna. I want to acknowledge, I did not see in the top left, we can see the rank of this Reyna. Tekken God is the top 1% of the player base. That is craziness, and I think we're seeing that because we're not seeing just the same moves from this Reyna. While we are seeing the jab, the 1-1-2 as getting a couple of good initial momentum, it is crazy what this Reyna has been able to pull off, but at the same time, a very good low into the combo, catching Moss, trying to get that last hit, trying to get the last bit of health away from Reyna, instead eats a lot of damage.
Yeah, this Reyna just has so many options in every single avenue of this game. She just keeps doing everything different every single time. Every time Moss seems to have something dialed in, there's something different coming out.
Yeah, we're seeing this sort of counter game where they're going for these parries. I always assumed that the low parry was just the go-to for everyone. Whatever setup this Reyna has going is crazy, and they're getting a lot of value off of it. A couple more good hits means that Reyna will close this one for the first match, but MossMan did take a round, and we've got even more games to play. I think MossMan could have the chance to get even more out of this with the adaptations.
Right. I really think the Reyna just kind of came into like, okay, like I'm this much better. Like my ranking says this because, you know, ranking is all that matters allegedly. But MossMan kind of came out like he came out punching. Like he came out really aggressively, got that first set off. And if he can do that again, like he can take this whole thing.
Yeah, now the big thing is that he can't get flustered. We talked about this earlier. There were a couple of moves in there that usually works so incredibly well for MossMan. The power crush thing where Nina goes forward with both her hands and sort of like force palm, like a Hadouken, just out in front. Usually gets Moss so much, but the Reyna was hitting those jabs, the 1-1-2, and then was able to block after, which means that frame data is insane. But MossMan, once again, coming out of the gate, swinging hard, does get the Reyna up against the wall, goes for a couple more good hits. It's not going to be enough just yet, goes for the power crush move, and it doesn't connect, meaning that Reyna will get a little bit of that gray health back and eat a solid amount of damage in response.
Yeah, MossMan was so close now. He cannot get flushed, and he does finish it out. That's the biggest thing. You get him up against the wall, and you're about to end them, but then they come out. You cannot get flushed in that moment.
Yeah, I'm loving what I'm seeing. MossMan finding good opportunities. The Reyna just ducking on these awkward spots where, yes, MossMan is getting the counter hits in return, going for the grab there, but Reyna able to break out this time. I'm wondering if it's conditioning. We did see Reyna try to get Moss up against the wall by breaking out of it, but at what cost? Reyna's health is going down fast.
Yeah, I mean, again, like all these grabs keep coming out from Moss. If one of them hits, he can keep going with it, but the Reyna's doing a great job of countering them every single time.
Oh, man, I mean, it's just a bunch of high-low mix-ups. It's a lot of just getting these initial hits. These combos aren't necessarily true, but when you're blocking one way, expecting your opponent to keep going in that direction, it doesn't work for you. So we do see Reyna doing a good job of mixing up these options. MossMan on the back foot for now, but using the heat dash to initiate. Does get one hit of the grab, but not much more, as a couple more good hits does mean that the health is starting to equalize, but another grab means that Reyna is just building up the damage.
Yeah, I mean, we have to watch the Rage Art. Unfortunately, we'll not get it off there. But something to note is that MossMan's doing a great job getting the combo going until they get on the ground, and then he struggles to pick it up from there. If he can just pick it up once they're on the ground, then he can really take these games over.
Yeah, that's a very big aspect of this game, is trying to continue your combo game. This game doesn't end its combos because you're sitting on the ground. Like situations like that, a couple of good hits from the Reyna means a very nice string up against the wall. Reyna caught jumping means that this Rage Art will connect. And Gavin, we said it earlier, you shouldn't be jumping in Tekken.
Yeah, you're a goofy goober if you jump. Like, I mean, MossMan kind of caught him, saw that jump, immediately sent it out. Let's see what he does here.
Yeah, this would be a very strong round to get back in his favor, but another 1-1-2 is going to be this Reyna's best friend. R is seeming to have a very strong game plan with those sort of light jabs, getting your opponent to sort of start going for these ducks. Oh, I'm always going to 1-1-2. I'm not going to go for anything crazy. Surprise mid punch to the gut, and you are sent flying into another wall.
Yeah, and something about this game is it's a lot of prediction based when you're trying to block. You know, you can be like, oh, they're sending out a lot of highs, but this Reyna is going from highs to lows, like you said, over and over and over. And those are two completely different inputs to block. So, like, MossMan just has to take a step back, relax, and just kind of focus on, okay, this is what they've been consistently doing. This is how I can answer. Or maybe start using the side steps to get out of the way as well.
Yeah, and again, we saw MossMan get another round off of this Reyna, getting just a little bit of that, and potentially there could have gotten another, but it's these small changes. You'll see that a lot in fighting games. The small changes can make a drastic difference at any level of competition, so keeping an eye out for that, deciding whether or not this is the opportunity I want to use my Power Crush, or sort of taking that step back, we will see. But we do get a little bit of footage ahead of time. The character swap is live. We will have our Clive enter the stage.
Yeah, and Clive has a big sword, as we can see, so he can kind of play a bit of range. You'll see MossMan backstep a lot more here, looking for a big combo here.
Jeez, I mean, it's just big hits, man. This character just does a lot of swinging, and it feels like there's no stopping. Look at these crazy moves and just how much chip damage it's dealing on this Reyna. A couple of good hits, Reyna no longer having heat, but MossMan caught up against the wall does mean that the first round will go to Reyna.
Yeah, the Reyna was on the wall for a second there, but she was able to sidestep out of it. And that's unfortunate because Clive really wants the opponent to be up against the wall. Once they're there, he can start doing these huge combos that kind of elevate them, but they still keep him on the wall for his sword.
Yeah, that's a very big aspect of this. I do think the Reyna was doing some level of conditioning against Moss to try and get Moss to go for these grabs in these situations where it can alternate, where she can flip over the opponent and get them up against the wall, because MossMan can't find great opportunities for that. As we see there, he is going to get the heat crush, but keep an eye on how the Reyna deals with this wall pressure.
Yeah, and here we see the heat. We're looking for the heat crush here, but again, trying to back that Reyna up as she dashes forward on the Clive. The combo kind of starting for Reyna, but looks like it got dropped.
Yeah, we do see Moss using the final step of that heat to try and get a good hit in. Instead, is going to eat a good amount of damage, does get hit up against the wall, and Reyna going for the low hit to try and get a little bit more damage. A very swift 3-0 for the Reyna. A very beautiful performance so far, but once again, it should be acknowledged, we are watching CFGC. This tournament setup is made where you play all 5 games, no matter what the outcome is. So while the Reyna does walk away with the 3-0 initially, there is still MR on the line. There is seeding potentially in the future. So keep an eye out. MossMan is not out of this yet. Any sort of momentum he can get back could offer huge value later down the line.
Yeah, we're playing for pride essentially, or playing for more of yourself, more of your mental aspect. You can say, "Oh, I took 2 rounds off of the Reyna this time. Like I'm showing improvement now." Now you have to think, okay, this Reyna is doing this to me. This is what a good player, like a top level player, does. How do I answer it? Now you have the time. Not really the stress of winning now. It's like, okay, analyze it. What can I do different?
Yeah, okay. Here's a very interesting thing for you. We are on a stage that the ground can break at any given point. And so with Reyna in particular, I am expecting to see potentially the heat reactivation to really get that damage going, but I think MossMan just called it out. I think he knows what this Reyna is looking for to get this crazy combo game started and is getting a lot of value off of it, but now MossMan up against the wall, getting caught, one hit after another, and it's just racking up to so much damage, and the gray health is falling back into Nina's hands, but the heat dash is able to reverse it. A couple of good hits does offer a lot of value, but it does mean that the Reyna will be able to close out round 1.
Yeah, and the Reyna is really, it seems like conditioned or maybe read MossMan. Every time he gets these big combos going, he's looking to end them on a grab. And both times, he had 2 really good combos in that round. That Reyna just kind of sidestepped the grab, and then she started going. So if MossMan can stop after these combos and stop looking for a grab, maybe he can start taking some rounds more successfully.
I mean, and that's a big factor of this. Reyna doing an excellent job of sort of keeping that momentum going. It does mean that just a couple of small opportunities could get a lot going. We did see the lightning strike, which means it takes even less for the ground to fall down beneath the opponent. There it is. Reyna able to get a good combo started, using the heat activation to get a combo going. It looks like this sort of heat setup where the Reyna is going for these sort of low health sweeps is getting a lot of damage. MossMan trying to use the Rage Art, trying to call out the Reyna, who's been playing such an aggressive game. Reyna on the other foot makes the call out and says, you should not be using this Rage Art right here. I am playing this game as calculated as I can be, so that Rage Art won't work this time around.
Yeah, I mean, she had the controller, like we said earlier, like she was in her combo. You can't just take the controller away. You have to be patient there. But honestly, not a bad look. Like if she doesn't read that, if she doesn't expect that to come out, you know, it can hit and it can really turn that round. But yeah, the Reyna just so calculated in it.
Yeah, I mean, beautiful stuff there. So far, we do have one more match up against this Reyna. I'm curious to see if MossMan is looking to opt back towards the Nina. The Clive has been doing good work, but it seems like the snowball that the Reyna had going up against Clive was just too much. It was very difficult for Clive to get out of that disadvantage and get that game plan going. While Nina has so many tools, and tools that MossMan is familiar with, understand, Clive is still relatively new to this game. So you need to take advantage of, yes, you can go for these new characters because they're good, they're strong, and all that stuff, or you can go for your pride and just true basic understanding of what you have practiced up until this point.
Right. I mean, you have this idea of, oh, new and shiny or old reliable. And obviously here we're going to see that it is the Clive coming back out. So it's more so of this, you know, trying to flashy or trying to be flashy.
Yeah, and I get it on the other side of this. We are in a 4-0 situation where you have the opportunity to really get this experience. Let's make it clear. MossMan loves Final Fantasy. The moment that this character was announced, MossMan was all over it. It didn't matter which game in the franchise the character was from. This is the rep that Moss wanted. So getting that practice in live competition, I mean, I get it. I get why you would want to run it. So as we cut into game here, we will see MossMan get a couple of good hits to start things off, but Reyna quickly able to get a nice, good kick and rack up some damage of her own.
Yeah, now remind me, Kevin, on this stage, is this the stage where on round 4 and above you can start breaking the floor? Is that something completely different?
Oh, this one is different. This stage is a very... Oh, actually, that is a good question. This stage is relatively new and kind of crazy. Oh my goodness, that was aggressive.
Yes, that was... the Reyna's definitely feeling herself now.
Yeah, I mean, calling out the heat reactivation from Moss, using it to sort of get that last crush, but it doesn't work out this time around. Reyna caught up against the wall, but is able to use that heat dash to sort of back away. Moss activating heat, trying to go for a grab. Reyna able to break out. Moss going for a very hard power crush hit, and Reyna, in response, able to get the perfect as we see the map change to the fiery sort of craziness that this game is known for.
Okay, so not the level I was thinking of, but it is a lava-based floor, which looks honestly incredible. And here we see Moss activating the heat, looking for something, but this Reyna just kind of hasn't downloaded at this point.
Yeah, it's a lot of good hits, and MossMan, again, trying to just use that rage art, feeling like Reyna is hitting these buttons for the sake of hitting them. But in return, this time around, once again, Reyna saying, believe it or not, I can get away with a lot just off of a jab, like a 1-1-2, setting up my game plan. And, I mean, it pays off this time around.
I mean, yeah, again, like we talked about studying, knowing your character. This was a very, very good player. Like you said, they were a Tekken god, I think it was.
Yeah.
And at that point, you kind of know frame data. You know how much you can reach. You can kind of bait him into using that rage art and then, like, punish him for it. And we saw that twice there. So you can't blame Moss for that. Again, like this was a Tekken god. This is a very good player. Moss did take a couple of rounds off of them. Looked to be very, very aggressive when he took those rounds. But if you're looking at it in retrospect, like looking for those grabs, like the Reyna kind of had the grabs answered. Every time a grab came out, she was able to step into the light essentially, and it's like, okay, it's my time to shine.
Yeah, I do think a lot of this will be a great game to look back on in the future, because a lot of the tools that MossMan has come to rely on that are so incredibly strong and so many different aspects of this game, this time around they just weren't working how they normally do. Usually in these matches, I see that power crush move from Nina just offer so much value. People get caught swinging when they shouldn't be, and that Reyna was swinging. Let's make that clear. She was hitting buttons, but the buttons had such good frame data, we're able to just didn't deal a lot of damage necessarily, but got a reaction out of MossMan, and because MossMan reacted to it, Reyna was able to then block and continue her game plan from there.
Yeah, something that I didn't bring up during the game, but it was very curious, is that Moss kind of changed his style of play in those first 2 rounds on the Nina. Usually when I see him play that, he starts with that heat crush with the big dash attack into something, and he started with jabs a lot. Now we see Moss back on the Nina, I believe, and we'll have to see if it does it here.
Yeah, here's the Fang player who's going for the exact same deal, but on a different character. Immediately gets a very strong hit to start things off using the heat dash, but MossMan able to return it, and we are seeing Fang go for a couple more of these big hits. We do see and a couple nice stomps. Again, this game does not end just because you are on the ground. You can get crazy value off of it. We do see the jump from the Fang. Does get called out by MossMan, and he is able to get a good couple of hits off to take round 1.
And really good patience from Moss. They're kind of letting him decide what he wants to do off of the ground and then kind of punishing it from there. That was great patience, and I think that's how you win these games, is you're waiting for the response. You don't have to let them make the first move, but just something.
Yeah, and we do see MossMan able to get the first round of grabs this time around. Does go for the low sweep, get a couple of advantage state here. Does get this Fang up against the wall. Does get another good hit as the Fang is in that tiny little corner, which means just about anything is going to connect. This Fang is doing a really good job of whiff punishing right now. We're seeing a lot of movement where he's sort of dashing around MossMan, and look at the value he gets off of just one good call out of that sort of neutral. MossMan able to return it, but I mean, it's crazy what we're seeing. A lot more backdash than we did see from even the Tekken god we saw earlier.
Right, yeah, I mean, that was a great opener from the Fang, but Moss got one grab up and was almost able to take the round back.
Yeah, beautiful stuff here. We will see another very aggressive start from the Fang. Same start as we saw from round 1, but man, that low setup is kind of crazy. That does a very solid amount of damage. And Fang just getting so much momentum, but not breaking out of these grabs just yet. MossMan able to get a couple of good low hits, but again, Fang sort of leaning back on that hit. MossMan reactivating heat. It won't deal much damage, but it does get him a little bit of health. Is able to combo it into the Rage Art. The scaling won't take out Fang, but it will deal a solid chunk of damage as Fang goes into a Rage Art state of his own.
Yeah, and I want to hit on something here. If in case you were wondering, like, your memory wasn't going off in those last 3 rounds, the exact same thing happened every single time. The Fang went for this huge move to start, kind of comboed it into MossMan on the wall, and then once it happened, Moss got a grab off, and then he retaliated. Over and over that happened, and at this point now, Moss can kind of expect that to happen again. Maybe he goes for this big move, maybe you're blocking mid now, and then you can respond instead of letting him take 75% of your health. But again, Moss takes that first round, really, really well played from him. You know, he let the Fang basically play his own game, like had his controller, you know, whatever. And then once he drops it, oh, whoops. And it's like, all right, Moss, it's time to pounce on it.
Yeah, and that's what you need to do. You are not out of a Tekken round until it says KO. You can make your comeback at any level of health. You just got to understand what resources you have and what your opponent is trying to do. Will we see the same initiation? Not this time around. Instead, it looked like Fang was trying to get an aggressive call out on MossMan. This time around, Moss does use that very aggressive power crush to get momentum going. Does reactivate the heat to get the dash, and Fang breaks out of the grab, ending with MossMan up against the wall this time around.
But again, it seems like every time MossMan's up against the wall in this matchup, he kind of gets out of it. Here he goes, he rolls out of it. And now, you know, the Fang's on the back foot.
Yeah, and we do see Fang go for just a little bit too much, and MossMan is on a pixel of health and does get the Rage Art off. This is going to do a ton of damage. I don't know if it KOs, but it is going to do a lot.
Yeah, and Moss gets back some of that gray health, so he kind of has a bit of a buffer here, and he does manage to take out the round.
Jeez.
So again, really close, but Moss, when he's up against this wall, is able to just roll out, and then he can kind of start playing the game.
Yeah, crazy stuff here starting things off. We do see MossMan able to get a couple of good hits in, and now the Fang's starting to step back. We're noticing he's playing much more patient this time around. He's not going for those crazy openers. Instead, is playing this sort of game where he's reacting to what Moss is throwing out. And because of that, he's able to take this first round. Again, this is a game of patience.
Yeah, and something like this game, you know, obviously is a fighting game. So like in a boxing analogy, you know, when you step on a fighter's toe, you kind of step back and you're like, all right, they did this now, so I can have patience. And that's exactly what this Fang is doing now. He's waiting for MossMan to make the first move, and then he's responding with whatever he needs to counter it.
Yeah, we do see Moss reactivating the heat, able to get a solid chunk of damage and get the Fang now into an awkward spot close to that wall. That wall should be destructible, which means we may see a setup there. Moss going for the setup where he goes for the power crush. Both players swinging at each other, and we do see Nina is able to walk away on top.
And these grabs are the name of the game for Nina. Like, they're just doing so much for her. Every single time she gets one, she's able to do so much damage and just start her own game plan, her own combo from them.
Yeah, I do think Fang there was looking for MossMan to again sort of take this aggressive approach because he went for a dash back into that shoulder bash. It should be offering crazy value, but this time around, because MossMan has found just a couple of whiffs, we will see Fang close out this combo, and it is 2-2 in these rounds. Who will walk away with this win as we enter a new stage?
Yeah, man, it's really scary once you get launched in air for any team. Here we see the heat immediately from Nina. Moss is trying to just end it here right now.
Yeah,
Fang has a good counter here.
Oh, a very aggressive shoulder bash from this Fang means that he will break through Moss's block and get a solid amount of damage going. Both players using the heat to dash. Won't see any other crazy combos out of this. We are going to see just true regular Tekken from this point forward. Rage Art on Fang. We haven't seen him use it yet. And the aggressive call out from MossMan. The whiff punish was able to close it out, meaning that MossMan has 2-0 for these matches.
Yeah, and man, if Moss could hear me right now, I'd be telling him to calm down. You see him after that, he gave out a big exhale. He's like, oh my gosh, like I did it. Now you have to secure one more at least. Ideally, you secure 3 more for your MR. But that was one round. You have to reset, mentally reset. Everything that happened in that game, forget about it, and you go again. This Fang did the same thing every single time game 1. Did not do it again game 2. Maybe he brings it back game 3. You have to keep that, be aware of that, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's almost a stage preference thing, because it did seem like Fang was doing the same thing on the same map over and over, where it was a lot of, on the second round of map, we did see the Fang go for this sort of punch forward. It wasn't the shoulder bash, but it was the same opener to sort of take up space. And I'm curious as we enter this stage, no destructible walls this time around, no crazy setups on the ground. It is pure, just raw Tekken, which means we should see potentially something similar to what we saw round 1.
And Moss should be very comfortable at this point. He got the opening hit, which is what he did all of last semester every single time. But unfortunately, the Fang got that big hit at the end there.
Yeah, we do see Fang doing a little bit of dashing, still feeling good. The dash back again, aggressive call out there. We do see the sort of charge setup into that unblockable does mean that MossMan is caught in a bit of stun and will eat a little bit of damage, but MossMan able to return it using the heat dash, keep the pressure going, but the Fang does break out of the grab and uses the dash back to get a solid amount of damage going as MossMan is up against the wall.
Yeah, the wall is your enemy, Moss. You have to get out of there. The Fang did a great job there, keeping her up against that wall, able to just combo off of it. Here we see a big Fang hit here into a combo. Obviously, Nina does not like to be in the air.
It's not the ideal place to be, no matter who you're playing as this time around. We do see MossMan get a couple of good hits. Does get the grab off, which means that Fang is now going to be the one closer to the wall, but another whiff punish. This Fang is doing a really good job of calling out Moss, who's been doing a lot of taking up space, throwing out those power crushes early to try and keep the pressure going, but now Fang doing a good job of dashing back and getting that game plan going. Fang looks like he went for an extra hit. That's a hit too many, my friend. MossMan goes for the Rage Art, and I believe this should KO. Yes, it does, which means MossMan does take a round.
Yeah, and again, you said the Fang was punishing the whiffs on MossMan. MossMan's punishing the Fang on the Rage Arts. When Fang goes for that one extra, Moss is like, you're stepping too far, buddy. Like, I have Rage Art, and consistently he's been able to pull it off.
Yeah, and that's a very powerful tool. Not everyone enjoys using Rage Art because it can be blocked, but it's a very real tool in these sorts of games. You have to be careful with it. So we do see Fang doing a really good job, once again, sort of dashing around these hits, and did a great job of keeping the momentum up. And I think Fang is holding up L's. Gavin, that's PM. That's not even intentional, and yet that feels
a little early for the Fang. Not gonna lie, like it's 1-2, man. Like the game's not over yet. But those dash attacks from the Fang in that last round, he was really putting the pressure on Moss, and we haven't seen him done very much of that. a lot of the time we've seen him combo off of his jabs, but this time he was just dashing forward, doing these heavy hits over and over and over. So kind of changing up the momentum, changing up his own or play style, and seeing what Moss does to react. And right now, no reaction from Moss.
Yeah, you do want to close this series out if you can. We are on the stage with the explosive sort of bottom after at round 4. We will see MossMan do a good job of getting that initial momentum. If we are going to see an answer where he's stopping the Fang from going for these sort of dash back punishes, I'm expecting to see a little bit more of the low sweep. Instead, MossMan starts with a perfect, getting great grabs to start things off.
And the patience there from MossMan, they're waiting for him to do the jump attack into just having patience, and now Moss is really on a new wave.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one hit after another, and throughout that move, far enough back that even the Fang could not go for the whiff punish there, but it does look like Fang is still sort of looking for that sort of setup. I'm expecting to see potentially a little bit more slides out of MossMan, but for now, both players are up against the wall. MossMan able to use the Power Crush to beat out the heat, and is going to get enough good hits to get a 2-0 round lead to start things off, and now the ground can explode, Gavin.
Yes, and with the ground exploding, if you slam him through the wall or through the ground, that can keep your combo going. But it's looking like the Fang just wants to keep him in this wall and keep going with this combo. It's absolutely insane. Into a perfect. That was so fast. That was only 11 seconds. Just got him up against the wall and just kept slamming him into that. That was crazy.
Yeah, and we're seeing it once again where this Fang's game plan of just getting solid hits in and going for these whiff punishes is crazy. I mean, it's these couple of good hits that lead to crazy combos, but in return, MossMan able to get the grab connected, goes for a little bit of chip damage on the ground, and Fang, again, using that move, which seems to beat out the blocks, and is crazy to think about. We are heading into the final round. MossMan with a bit of a lean definitely wants to close this out. He does not want this to be even close to a potential 2-2, instead going for the grab. Both players trading hits as they go for their game plan.
Yeah, very, very aggressive for this final round here. Just constantly swinging back and forth. We see a bunch of backstabs, but Moss was able to get a grab off. It should be the end of the round.
Yeah. Fang was unable to break out of the entire grab sequence. There were multiple points throughout all of that you are able to break out. If you know the correct 1-2 or 1 and 2 combination, you could have gotten out, but Fang caught in a string that MossMan hasn't gone for up until this point. The longer string of chain grabs means that MossMan is able to get a 3-1 match victory, but you still have one more.
Yeah, play for MR, play for honor, play for pride, play for whatever you want to play for, but now finish it out and end strong. In that final round, we saw the Fang kind of get a little uncomfortable. Like you said, Moss brought out the long grab combo, and Fang wasn't expecting it. Kind of was in his zone, was like expecting this short grab combo, and that really caught him off. So that was a great change from Moss, kind of reacting to everything that's been going on in this long game.
Yeah, so as we see MossMan going back to the Pride and True, goes for that immediate Power Crush to get solid amounts of damage, and in return did get a good amount of momentum on the Fang, but Fang returns it with another shoulder bash of his own, and again, that block sort of break move, those shoulder bashes feel so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, the camera definitely helps with it, but again, it looks like it cannot be blocked. And it seems like it just has priority over everything. Every time that comes out, the Fang is immediately able to start his combo here. As we see Nina get against the wall, see if she can get out.
Yeah, a couple of good hits. MossMan activating the heat to get a little bit of momentum going. Does get the grab, but not much more. Using the low sweep, I imagine, to call out the Power Crush of the shoulder bash. Here comes a grab. One good hit into another. Does mean that MossMan even things out 1-1 for the rounds, and immediately, a mix-up from MossMan, going for this sort of somersault move to get the momentum going, which I don't think we've seen up to this point.
Yeah, and it looks like Moss has a pretty nasty combo here, already taking out 75% of his health. And again, that just starts from a grab. Once Moss starts that first grab, he seems very, very comfortable with it. But now, Fang gets a chance to play. He has the controller. Let's see what he can do with it.
Yeah, we do see sort of more of this setup with the shoulder bashes and these sort of force palm-esque moves. I do think because Fang holds it for so long, that move is unblockable, which means that Moss either needs to dash back or dash into the foreground or background to get as much value as possible. But instead, for now, this does mean Fang has a pretty good lead, is able to get a couple more good hits, and does get a perfect to close things out for this round of CFGC. But that does still mean that MossMan does walk away victorious with a 3-2 victory up against the Shaman King, I believe was the name, this Fang player, who was very good at this game.
And shout out Grandma, obviously, always. That's Moss's #1 catchphrase. We're going to steal it for today. Shout out Grandma. But looking at that game, Moss, or like, it seemed very, very even in a lot of different ways, like a very evenly matched game where it seemed like every time that Fang got these kind of big shoulder bashes out, he felt very comfortable. Every time Moss got a grab off, it was the same thing. So it was like, okay, which one's going to get kind of their combo piece, their combo like chandelier going first?
Yeah, you have so many different branches that can go off of those 1 points, but it does start at that sort of focal point. Those openings generally decided the momentum for the game, but I do think the reason why MossMan walked away with the 3-2 is because of what we saw in the very first round. Fang, yes, was finding that momentum early on, but MossMan was able to turn it around and secured that round because of it. Fang changed a little bit of that game plan going forward, and thus was able to get a sort of solid, secure couple of round wins, but it wasn't enough early enough for him to walk away with the series.
Yeah, and with Fang, it looks like once, he feels very comfortable, then once, like, the opponent gets, like, 25% HP, he starts to get nervous. He's like, okay, now I have to finish it. Like, I got this far, I might as well finish it out. And it seems like he stumbles on himself. And Moss really took advantage of that in that game 1, like you said. 4 out of the 5 rounds, Moss ended up at 25% and got him down to literally a sliver of HP. And those are all almost perfects from the Fang. He had those huge openers into the wall, and then Moss kind of took a second and was like, all right, what do I need to do? And he, sidestepped it, or he dodged a grab, or he did whatever he needed to, and then started his own combo, and the Fang kind of got worried.
Yeah, and that's a very real aspect of any fighting game, is when you start seeing these sort of, like, because someone is low, oh, we must have to close it out. We have to finish it. I'm so close. No, you don't. If it is not your turn to start hitting your opponent, do not try to make it your turn. Otherwise, you will eat so much damage. And we saw it. We saw it over and over where you get these crazy launchers and they're sending Fang flying across the stage. Crazy stuff all around. It was beautiful to see. I'm so excited to see MossMan throughout the rest of the semester.
Yeah, again, if you have the controller, do everything you can with it. But once you drop it, once go, you cannot pick it back up, because that's when you get punished even more. And thinking about the future, I really want Moss to play more of the Clive. I think the character is very, very like fancy, very shiny. It's new. It makes other players more uncomfortable on it. But also, that's his preference. I understand right now he's like, okay, like it wasn't working, so I'm going to go back to the Pride and True. But maybe he puts more practice in it. I would really like to see him play it more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, MossMan is the kind of player who, once he sits down and tries to understand the game, he will figure it out each and every time. It's a matter of just sort of finding those opportunities, getting that game plan down, and once it all falls into place, maybe it will eventually take over that Nina. But, I mean, all the same, that Nina's going to offer so much value. So, I mean, kudos to him either way.
Yeah, the Nina looks very, very good. And I said it, or at least when I was watching Tekken last semester, he always opened with that huge, big punch to the mid. And this time, he didn't do it until basically the final round. It was like kind of a callback. I was like, all right, this is what I used to do. And it worked in that moment. So maybe now we see Moss with a bunch of different openers. He seemed to open up with a lot of different options and variants. So maybe he's kind of developed more as a player with that, where he's less predictable. And now like Nina kind of just has so many options that he wants to stick on it.
Yeah, it was beautiful stuff all around. I am all for it. I am very curious just to see what's Moss's game plan will be going forward and all of that stuff. But with all of that being said, I do believe we are planning on ending the broadcast here shortly. So with all of that being said, if you are new here, please drop a follow. Be sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Follow all of the social medias that will be all on the bottom of the screen or wherever else you may be able to find them. Beautiful stuff all around. There's plenty more content going forward and plenty more matches throughout the week. So with all of that said, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Thank you guys so much for holding it down in the back for us. I'm here with the man himself, MossMan, here to play some Tekken for us tonight. I cannot be more excited. We've not seen Tekken yet here on the broadcast this year. We saw you last semester on the Nina. Is there going to be any changes with some of the meta shifts we've seen in Tekken over break, or is it going to be more of the same from you tonight, MossMan?
Probably more of the same. Nina got nerfed a little bit here and there. Nina's still really good. As for everyone else, as long as Jin gets nerfed, pretty much everything else I feel is like really good. It's pretty similar than what we to what we saw last semester. Obviously, Clive is now in.
MossMan, I'm sure you'll do great. Do you have any final words for the audience before you start tonight?
Just shout out Grandma.
Shout out Grandma, indeed. Back to you guys in the booth.
Great shout out to Grandma, of course. Great interview as well. That opponent does need to deal with that. That change in mindset will decide whether or not I'm going to be able to get a whiff punish on this giant sword.
Yeah.
Or if I'm going to whiff on Moss's like early swing, and then it's going to be Moss's turn again to just continue his momentum, keep building that damage, and just keep your opponent in that block stun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like you mentioned, Clive has this huge sword that kind of comes out at different angles, at different...
And so you can only afford so many mistakes. Yes, these series do go upwards of anywhere between 3 to 5 matches in a round, but like, or rounds in a match, excuse me. But like, that's crazy to think about just how quickly you can melt in this sort of game.
Yeah, and look...
You're right, exactly. Like, you gotta take the time to understand, okay, this, like, I shouldn't be swinging back here. Unless your opponent is going for something crazy. They know a move is plus, and they say,
we're going to go all in immediately. We're going to use all of our damage. We're going to go for these huge, big hits immediately. Or you can kind of look at your heat as a way to, you know, use it for a finisher. Combo base is all it is. This game is all about just getting that combo right into the wall. But Moss does a great job getting out of that grab and out of the corner now. Ariz is in the corner.
Yeah, Reina. Reina means that MossMan is now on the back foot.
Yeah, and again, now we have the heat rage that MossMan might try to use here. It gets blocked, which is a good block by Reina.
As getting a couple of good initial momentum. It is crazy what this Reina has been able to pull off, but at the same time, a very good low into the combo, catching Moss. Always assumed that the low parry was just the go-to for everyone. Whatever setup this Reina has going is crazy, and they're getting a lot of value off of it. A couple doesn't connect, meaning that Reina will get a little bit of that gray health back and eat a solid amount of damage in response.
Yeah, MossMan was so close now. He cannot get flushed.
Down fast.
Yeah, I mean, again, like all these grabs keep coming out from Moss. If one of them hits, he can keep going with it. But the Reina's doing a great job of countering them every single time.
Ooh. As a couple more good hits does mean that the health is starting to equalize, but another grab means that Reina is just building up the damage.
Yeah, I mean, we have to watch the Rage Art. Unfortunately, kind of caught him, saw that jump, immediately send it out. Let's see what he does from here.
Yeah, this would be a very strong round to get back in his favor, but another crazy moves and just how much chip damage it's dealing on this Reina. A couple of good hits. Reina no longer having heat, but MossMan caught up against the wall. Does this. I do think the Reina was doing some level of conditioning against Moss to try and get Moss to go for these grabs in these situations. Final step of that heat to try and get a good hit in instead is going to eat a good amount of damage. Does get hit up against the wall, and Reina going for into Nina's hands, but the heat dash is able to reverse it. A couple of good hits does offer a lot of value, but it does mean that
So if MossMan can stop after these combos and stop looking for a grab, maybe he can start taking some rounds more successfully.
I mean, and that's a big factor of this. Reina, this sort of heat setup where the Reina is going for these sort of low health sweeps is getting a lot of damage. MossMan trying to use the Rage Art, trying to call out the Reyna, who's been playing. Oh, this one is different. This stage is a very... Oh, actually, that is a good question. This stage is relatively new and kind of crazy. Oh my, it's the wall, but is able to use that heat dash to sort of back away. Moss activating heat, trying to go for a grab. Reyna able to break out. Moss going for a very hard power crush.
He's looking for something, but this Reyna just kind of has it downloaded at this point.
Yeah, it's a lot of good hits, and MossMan again trying to just use that Rage Art, feeling like Reyna is hitting these.
Here's is that Moss kind of changed his style of play in those first 2 rounds on the Nina. Usually when I see him play that, he starts with that heat crush with the big dash attack into something, and he started with jabs a lot. Now we see Moss back on the Nina, I believe.
And just because you are on the ground, you can get crazy value off of it. We do see the jump from the Fang. Does get called out by MossMan, and he is able to get the first round of grabs this time around. Does go for the low sweep, get a couple of advantage state here. Does get this Fang up against the wall. Does get another good hit. A lot more backdash than we did see from even the Tekken god we saw earlier.
Right, yeah, I mean, that was a great opener from the Fang, but Moss got one grab up and was almost able to take.
But it will deal a solid chunk of damage as Fang goes into a Rage Art state of his own.
Yeah, and I want to hit Fang's on the back foot.
Yeah, and we do see Fang go for just a little bit too much, and MossMan is on a pixel of health and does get the Rage Art off. This is going to do a ton of damage. I don't know if it KOs, but it is going to do a lot.
Yeah, and Moss gets back some of that great health, so he kind of has a bit of a buffer here, and he does manage.
Noticing he's playing much more patient this time around. He's not going for those crazy openers. Instead, is playing this sort of game where he's reacting to what Moss is throwing to an awkward spot close to that wall. That wall should be destructible, which means we may see a setup there. Moss going for the setup where he goes for the power crush. Both players swinging at each other into that shoulder bash. It should be offering crazy value, but this time around, because MossMan has found just a couple of whiffs, we will see Fang close out this crazy combos out of this. We are going to see just true regular Tekken from this point forward. Rage Art on Fang. We haven't seen him use it yet, and the aggressive call out from MossMan. Something similar to what we saw round 1.
And Moss should be very comfortable at this point. He got the opening hit, which is what he did all of last semester every single time. But unfortunately, the
Fang does break out of the grab and uses the dash back to get a solid amount of damage going as MossMan is up against the wall.
Yeah, the wall is your enemy, Moss. You have to get
for an extra hit. That's a hit too many, my friend. MossMan goes for the Rage Art, and I believe this should KO. Yes, it does. Can be blocked, but it's a very real tool in these sorts of games. You have to be careful with it. So we do see Fang doing a really good job. We're going to see an answer where he's stopping the Fang from going for these sort of dash back punishes. I'm expecting to see a little bit more of the low sweep. Instead, that sort of setup, I'm expecting to see potentially a little bit more slides out of MossMan, but for now, both players are up against the wall. MossMan able to use the power crush to beat out the heat.
Through the wall, or through the ground, that can keep your combo going, but it's looking like the Fang just wants to keep him in this wall and keep going with this combo. It's absolutely insane. Into a perfect, that was
easy combos, but in return, MossMan able to get the grab connected, goes for a little bit of chip damage on the ground, and Fang, again, using that move, which seems to beat out the block
here. Constantly swinging back and forth. We see a bunch of backsteps, but Moss was able to get a grab off. It should be the end of the round.
Yeah. Fang was unable to break out of the entire grab sequence. There were multiple points throughout all of that you are able to break out. If you know the correct turn, did get a good amount of momentum on the Fang, but Fang returns it with another shoulder bash of his own. And again, that block sort of break move. Those grab, but not much more. Using the low sweep, I imagine, to call out the power crush of the shoulder bash. Here comes a grab. One good hit into another.
Very, very comfortable with it. But now Fang gets a chance to play. He has the controller. Let's see what he can do with it.
Yeah, we do see sort of more of this setup with the shoulder bashes, but instead, for now, this does mean Fang has a pretty good lead, is able to get a couple more good hits, and does get a perfect to close. But that does still mean that MossMan does walk away victorious with a 3-2 victory up against the Shaman King, I believe was the name, this Fang player, who was very good at this game.
And shout out Grandma, obviously, always. That's Moss's #1 catchphrase. We're going to steal it for today. Yeah. Shout out Grandma. But looking at that game, it seemed very, very even in a lot of different ways. Like,
know what I can, and I never mentioned the times you were rude, and I never mentioned when you hid the truth. Scared to lose it all, I will stand a chance, and I don't wanna fake it. What if I can't walk away? You got me staying away, hoping I don't make the same mistake. Same mistake. Hoping I don't make the same mistake. I don't like to leave things unresolved. Maybe it's madness. I'm begging you, please pick up the call. You're causing me damage. I should've known, wasn't your fault. Don't even matter. I wasn't thinking clear, trying to take it there. Scared to lose it all, I won't stand a chance, and I don't wanna fake it. What if I can't walk away? You got me standing in the rain, hoping I don't make the same mistake. Same mistake.